not, then had to obtain a national ID, because then your phone won't be on, then you don't have mobile money, then you don't have access to so many things.
Yeah.
So even then, and this is to answer Wendy's question, there is nearly the same number of women with national ID as there are men with national ID currently, at the rate of 60% identification, but still there are more men who have used the ID to register a SIM card as opposed to females. Because many females who forget that this is attached to the access to financial services will register their SIM card in their husband's names. So when they are giving out reparations for COVID, when you're trying to send money, you're trying to do business, this SIM card, the one key you have to financial access and freedom, is in your husband's names. So that, Wendy, I think is something for us as females to discuss, but...
Yeah, it's very absurd and it's quite common. Very interesting submission there, Elizabeth. Lydia, do you agree with Elizabeth?
Yes, I do agree with Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, I do agree with Elizabeth. And it's about the same number of male and female regarding the number of national IDs issued so far. However, the extra step of what are we doing with the national ID is now where the gap really becomes evident. You find, like she mentioned, they're able to register, get a mobile phone, use it for other services. And then for the ladies, those who are registering for the mobile, to register a mobile phone, it's about 8% less. But even when they register, it's for the basic uses. I'm making a call, I'm receiving a call, maybe I'm not even doing, the other transactions that are available to me. I might be saving, but maybe I've never tried to borrow from some of the solutions which are there. I could actually borrow and use this money to start something for myself. But then we see that there's a gap there, especially on what we are doing after getting this national ID.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Cleopatra, I know Elizabeth touched base on some of the issues. The next question we're going to be talking about. How do we make use of the frameworks and resources, such as Level 1 project, to place women at the center of financial inclusion advocacy? What platforms can we use? What social norms are hindering this progress?
Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, so... Hello? Okay, sorry. All right. So how do we use frameworks, existing frameworks, like Level 1 project, okay? Now, this goes to the creators of financial services, the designers of these financial services. You have to keep women in mind. Get them involved in the process, like all the way. When you're gathering the requirements, go down, okay, to that end user, right? Go down to the end user. Pick data from them. Understand what their aspirations are, okay? Like we've had, we had the ladies from the first panel, the market leaders. They were telling us what they would desire financial institutions and digital financial service providers to offer them, okay? Now that is the sort of information that we need, okay? The decision makers, we have the bankers here and the FITSPA officials and so on. These are the people that you need to be dealing with, okay? So reach out to these women, understand their aspirations, understand their limitations, all right? Still from the first panel, I listened very keenly, okay? Because as a developer myself, software engineer, I'm interested in designing products that are going to help such communities. So they talked about being given funds on credit, okay, such that they are able to access some of these financial services that are digital, all right? Now, if you have all this data before you begin designing products for them, you're actually going to create greater impact when you finally roll it out to such communities, all right? Then still again to the fintech stakeholders, people who make decisions and design products for these communities. Get these people involved, okay? And have targets, have numerical targets that you set. Like we had Moses from the panel just before us. Moses, I'm forgetting the bank he's from. So he talked about how they identified particular districts and went and did upskilling, and what they realized was that there was greater impact, okay, that they created in that community. And also from your TV, the CEO, very commendable job you're doing, right? So he gave us his winning formula. He's like, yo, I was able to outcompete DSTV, GoTV, and all these other companies because I went down and worked with the end user. Okay? I talked to the end user. I worked with them. I worked with them. I understood what they need. I understood their aspirations. I understood their limitations. I understood their resources. Okay? Because I still noted, he talked about data, and boy, data is such a big deal. I personally, I use Liquid Telecom, so I pay monthly for my data. I'm a big data user. So on those days when I have to pay for data and I'm buying a GB to just stream a certain video, I feel the pain, okay? So imagine this is what other Ugandans are probably going to. People who cannot probably have access to such unlimited data. This is what they have to go through every day. Okay? So understand the end user that you're targeting. Okay? Have numerical targets. If you want to help women, include as many women as possible at the grassroots. Set the target again. Let's say in this year, we plan to reach like 3 million women, probably in northern Uganda. Okay? And then work towards that target. So that is going to take you actually down to ground. Okay? You're not going to make all the decisions in Kampala, and yet you're targeting women who are in the northern region. So you're going to go down, and then when you start working with these women, with these ladies, with marginalized groups, you're going to understand their needs better and thereby design products that are actually going to help them, that they're actually going to adopt.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So, Wendy.
Thank you so much, Cleopatra. You make a very good point. I think more women should be included in such boards or designing of products, because I believe as a woman, you know exactly the pain points of another woman. And Cleopatra, on the same, what frameworks and resources in terms of level 1 project principles do you think can help improve financial access for women?
Yes.
Sorry, not Cleopatra, Flavia. You spoke so well, I got my apologies.
No worries at all. Again, so I feel like before we speak about the frameworks, we need to understand what is happening right now, the mentality that is already on ground, that a lady cannot do certain things in society. We need to erase the mentality, first of all. We need to erase the mentality that women are supposed to be in the kitchen. They cannot do the basic financial things. Women can actually be peers. They can be able to do much more than what we are thinking. So I feel like once we erase the mentality of what people think about women, then we'll be able to come up with frameworks. Because also the women need to be consistently reminded that they do exist, that they are valued in society. So we need to come up with things that make women valuable. They need to be valued, they need to be understood, they need to be listened to. So the level 1 project is going down to the bottom of the pyramid. You need to be able to think and speak the language of that person at the bottom of the pyramid. As I was coming here today, I was thinking, could there be mobile phones that are in Luganda or like speak people's language? Again, that is just something I thought about as I was walking in, because we are trying to empower the women. But if we look at the people down at the bottom of the pyramid, do they understand these apps that we are coming up with? Most of the apps are in English, but some of them understand their languages. In the north, when you go to Ginger, different people understand differently. So can someone think about a phone that actually has the local language, such that we can be able to pull up the women? That the thing of the gender divide, it started long before. We are just trying to clean it up, but way before, people just have the mentality that a woman cannot do, whatever they can do is basically take care of a home, let them be in the kitchen, let them be really shut up. But we need to be able to get spaces where women can be able to feel comfortable before we come up with these frameworks. We need to be able to listen to them, because when we listen to them, we will then be able to come up with proper frameworks to help them.
Thank you very much, Flavia. And Dameli, what has changed in the gender gap in the mobile phone ownership over the last 3 years? How do we ease women's onboarding?
Thank you, Wendy. Maybe before I get into the question, I wanted to, kind of like my colleagues, talk about financial access for women, because it's very important. The first panel here talked about, one of the number one things they kept mentioning is the fact that COVID 2020 hit them, but not as hard as 2021. Because in 2020, they lost their capital. 2021, they could not even access any more money, even from the money lenders or the banks or wherever it is. So when we're talking about a financial access, we need to talk about financial access from the point of recovery. So it was already bad enough before, but now after COVID, it's hit women, okay, almost everyone, but it's hit women even further. So it's taken them like 3 steps backward. So we need to figure out a way to ensure that they recover. And in beginning to do this, we need to look at data. Information, basically, statistics, information, because that's what is supposed to inform what we do. If you look, I kept looking around for information to do with informal trade, informal domestic trade. You could barely find those numbers. But if you think about the woman who used to sell casole in the night, the woman who was actually maybe selling lumonde, this roast lumonde on the road, and then what has happened to them in the curfews, what happened to that woman? What happened to her capital? What happened to her kids, who she used to feed from the money she got from the time? And the only data I have that I could get is informal cross-border trade, because that one is collected by the government at the borders, though even what is collected is not the full extent of informal trade that's happening at the borders. So in 2019, before COVID hit, we had our informal traders at the borders sold $500 million worth of goods to our neighbors. Just think about it. That's $500 million worth of goods to our neighbors in informal things like beans, maize, all that. It's a lot of money. So if you, and 80% of the people who are in informal trade at the borders are women. So this trade entirely ceased to happen during the lockdowns. 500 million Uganda shillings. So when it stopped, it means those women who were at the border selling these things, okay, 80%, the other 20% is men. But it means that those women ate into their capital. So they are now farther behind than they were before. So we need to figure out a way to make sure that they recover. But that number I have is only for informal cross-border trade. I don't know how much domestic informal trade has been hit. We don't have the number, so we need to be able to get the statistics. Then in terms of women who are doing formal businesses, Uganda has the highest number of women entrepreneurs in the world. We are number 1 Ugandan women, and it's at 40%. But thank you, should be celebrated. But that 40%, which is the highest number in the world, those women are less likely to have access to money, capital. So normally what they do is a woman entrepreneur looks at her own savings, her family, she asks her husband, her brother, her cousins, everyone, but she doesn't have access to formal means of finance. So she's less likely to have access, because when you go to a bank, they're going to ask for, a land title, a car log. We are less likely to have a land title or a car log. So then the other thing about women is that we are very risk averse. So inherently, we are less likely to go to a bank to get the loans. But even those few who are cautious enough, but are like, you know what, my business makes sense, let me go to the bank and get a loan, they're going to ask for requirements that you can't even anyway access. So there is no point. So despite these hurdles, I still like to celebrate that Uganda, we are the #1 in the world, women entrepreneurs. We have the highest number despite these hurdles. Imagine if we didn't have the hurdles, we would be like, at 51%. We would be, farther ahead in the world than we actually are. So that's my take on the financial inclusion component. The question you asked me about access to mobile phones in Uganda, from the studies I've seen, and I'm always looking for information. I'm usually reading reports, but also this is information that is anecdotal. So the GSMA study that will happen in 2021, the most recent one, indicated that women are 7% less likely to have a handset than men. And going back to the first panel that was here, we know why. The ladies, the market leaders, told us that, yes, it's difficult for them to have access to a handset. And in fact, they recommended for the mobile networks that if you know I've been with you for 3-4 years, why would you not give me, via my SIM card, why would you not give me a handset that I can pay slowly on credit? So women are 7% less likely than guys to have a handset. Then the report also indicated that women are 20% less likely to use their phone beyond receiving and making phone calls. And so and usually the main reason they give for this is that women, first of all, we are time poor. We don't have that much time. So we're going to spend less time on our phone, because if I go back to the first panel, they have to go back home, they have to feed their kids, they have to worry about, I left all my 3 kids at home and I don't know what they're doing. So the phone call you're making is mostly calling your daughter, making sure she's at home at 5 p.m. You're making sure she's in the house. She's not being made pregnant because of COVID. So they have less time to basically play around with the phone, and therefore they use their phone 20% as less as men. The other statistic that it indicated that women are 28% less likely to access the internet through their phone. And key reasons is because, one, the language barrier, the knowledge about how to use it, and what information you're going to access, or do they even know what information to get there? So those are the major constraints in terms of mobile access, especially regarding gender. And the key, I feel when I was listening to the first panel, all the solutions were right there. Access to a phone, if the mobile networks that benefit from someone actually having a handset can give credit phones, phone by credit, where people pay back by slowly, that will help in enabling more women for us to close this gap of 7%. It will help, because the biggest problem to accessing a handset is the cost. It's expensive. So you can't afford it, you don't have it. But also, once you don't have it, you can't access finance through the fintechs, not through the banks. Anyway, you can't access finance, but then you also can't access the information you need. Then the other bit that they also mentioned, the first panel mentioned, was the fact that they don't have the knowledge. So what would I be using my phone for beyond making a phone call or receiving a phone call if I don't even know how to use it, if I have a smartphone, say, for example, or I don't know the services that are there, even if I have a capability. So we need to talk about, if we're going to talk about financial inclusion in a more constructive way, is to provide the knowledge, the training, the skilling of women who are involved in business, who are involved in trade, who are involved in buying and selling. And this should be provided by the players who are in this sector, who are in the sector of trying to ensure that e-commerce works. One of the ladies on the panels mentioned the fact that, yes, they know the world is moving towards the internet. They know that. It's not like they don't know. It's not like they're not aware. It's just that they don't have the tools. They don't know how to. So how do we ensure that we can provide those tools to them? Then the other component that has to be addressed is also for us to encourage these women to use the mobile phones that they have to do business and do trade and improve their final access, is to ensure that real-time payments are provided. And I think that's one of the principles of the Level 1 project, is that as long as they're not receiving their money in real time, they are basically subsidizing, say, Safe Border. They are giving credit to Safe Border. Can you imagine the lady with her market stall is giving credit to a corporation like Safe Border because she gave her tomatoes to the driver. The driver delivered the tomatoes to Damali. Damali paid, but she hasn't received her money. So she neither has the tomatoes nor does she have her money. So she's given credit to Safe Border. It's outrageous that we would sit in an economy and exploit that woman. In the entire value chain, she's the one who is the most vulnerable. She's the one with the least money. Damali has the money, Safe Border has the money, but she doesn't. She's the one who needs her money the most. So she's the one we are supposed to ensure that the payments do get to her in real time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Damali. And Lydia, there is insufficient gender data and analysis to inform decisions. How do we improve this status?
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, we must be mindful that we have a larger number of people living in the rural areas. So therefore, we should be, one of the reasons why we don't even have this data is because we have not gone ahead to access the rural areas and find out what exactly is happening at the smallest unit over there. So we have all this data collected from the urban areas. I'm sure if I asked Kampala how many people have mobile phones, everybody knows the numbers offhand. But if I asked how many people in Karamoja have phones, and of those, how many are women, I'll probably have to get a study and go reading over that. So that is something that we really must focus on. We need to go down to the rural areas, to dig deeper, to be hungry for this data, because that's where it all starts. So first of all, we need to go there. And then the second thing that I really think we must focus on is to be able at least to tag a national ID to everybody. And as she shared rightly so, the coverage is only about 60% of the people who are eligible. So there's a 40% where we don't have data at all. So again, you'll find that, say, for NERA, most of the offices are in the rural areas, are in the urban areas. So we probably need to have some more deliberate actions of how are we going to open more offices in the other districts, the other smaller towns, so that at least for starters, we can get a national ID for each one, because then it will tell us, a couple of things about you, and we'll have a central database for this. And thereafter, we can then take it a step further and say, yes, you have a national ID, but you don't have say, a mobile phone, so we might not be able to contact you, but let's have that data point being made in the first place.
Thank you very much, Lydia. And Flavia, what are your thoughts on this? How do we improve this status? How do we get more data?
It perplexes my mind that in the population, the 65, it perplexes my mind that women are actually more than men in the population, but when it comes to statistics of data, women seem to be way behind. So it just puzzles my mind. But what I think is, we probably need to give a carrot and stick. Let us find a way of motivating women to be able to Let us find a way of motivating women to be able to register for their national IDs, like have their own national IDs. Maybe we need to personalize products that make them go to the centers to register. And also we need to be able to go down to the villages, put these centers of collecting data in those remote areas. So when it comes to whatever data they've collected, it will then probably come up to what we are thinking. You understand? Like, we need to be able to go to the bottom. Instead of having centers for data in Kampala, I think we also need to take it deep down in the village to a small little hut somewhere where a lady can easily walk and register, because like a panelist here said, most of them are busy. They have children. Maybe they get carried away by whatever they are doing. But if we try and go to the bottom of the pyramid, put registration centers where they are meant to be, then perhaps the women will register. Then we also need to think about collecting this data at birth. Maybe now that there is a national ID system, the NERA system, we need to be able to collect the information at birth and let the information that we are collecting be accurate, be able, like, let it speak to the people, let it be in the space of women, and let them know that they're actually, whatever child they've given birth to has been registered in the national system. I think that will also help us. We need to also have coding systems. We need to be able to know who is male, who is female, but in a more friendlier way, such that the information doesn't get lost as it's collected? Are there any codings that they can come up with to know that, this is a woman, this is a male?
That's a very interesting point. I wonder what's currently happening, but let's leave that discussion for another time. And Damali, in 1 minute, why are women at a higher risk of exclusion from scaled-up cash transfer response to COVID-19?
I think the biggest problem we have is we need to usually reassess what we've done before. So there was a COVID response, a cash COVID response that took place where the Prime Minister called someone, they transferred the money. So there's something that happened. And we need to look at, so how did that go? How many of those cash transfers that were made, how many of them, so what is the balance? How many of them actually were accessed by women and how many were accessed by men? If we have that information, then that will help us devise our next response on how we respond. If we in fact find that it was less than 51% of the people who received that fast COVID cash response, over 100,000 Uganda shillings, less than 51% of them were women, then we know there's something wrong, because women are 51% of the population here in Uganda. So they should, whatever those cash transfers are, should be equal to 51%, should have gone to women, 49% to men. If they didn't, then the next COVID response cash transfers should make sure that that is balanced out. And we have to figure out why. Why did they not actually go to more women? And then once we figure that out, then we make sure that we make those corrective measures. But also beyond that, I know that the government has done a lot of measures around making sure that there is a COVID recovery, and they put in a lot of money. In UDB, they put in like 700 billion Uganda shillings in UDB to help SMEs to be able to access money so that they can, for the COVID recovery. Unfortunately, the constraints that or the requirements, I shouldn't call, though in a way they are constraints. The requirements to access this money is that you need to have collateral. As soon as that is mentioned, women are cut out. That's just the fact. Because as soon as you ask for collateral, women are cut out. So we need to figure out a way on where government provides taxpayers' money to give a COVID response to SMEs to recover so that all of us benefit, because it's an all-of-us economy. But how do we ensure that this taxpayers' money is not tied to requirements that a certain part of the population can't just meet? So you're automatically cutting them out, and yet it is taxpayers' money, and it's supposed to help our economy. The other thing that the government has done, I think recently, 2 weeks ago or a week ago, Ministry of Finance said that they have provided, I think, 230 billion Uganda shillings for, again, SMEs. But this was going to be provided through from Ministry of Finance to a certain number of banks. And those banks were supposed to then disperse that money to SMEs. But again, the requirements, there's that collateral requirement. Automatically, it cuts it out. So I am really appreciative that government is trying to make sure that money is available for recovery and for SMEs. It's just that we need to make sure that that government money, i.e. taxpayers' money, doesn't have limitations to a certain part of the population. So if you think about it, and I was scratching my head, how can they actually do this? They can do this actually using the mobile networks, because the mobile networks will lend you money without you having to give them your land title. And even if I have a land title, I would never give it to the bank. So even the few women who have a land title won't actually provide it. So I think we need to figure out how to use taxpayers' money, the government response, but take away the restrictions that stop women from having the access. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Damali. Thank you very much, ladies, for this very insightful discussion. I'm pretty sure we shall definitely discuss more. For the interest of time, we'll stop here. Appreciate.
Let's clap for them one more time. Thank you very much, ladies. And the future is women.
Is it?
Yes, it is. I was